Hello and welcome to another motorcycling video. In the first part of this video I was riding around town going off to the place where I normally go running, and I was talking a little bit about Goulburn and giving you some tips about how to ride the Spider, and I intended to do that in the second part on the ride home. But a couple of things have come to my attention since then, and I just cannot let these things go without commenting on them. Now I suppose the solution would be stop reading newspapers and stop paying attention to articles that talk about these matters, but I feel that one of the things that I can do with this channel is bring to the attention of people who watch my videos and subscribe to the channel and take an interest in it, things that they may not be aware of because they're perhaps not newspaper readers, or they don't get to, this information doesn't appear in the newspapers that they read. This relates to motorcycle deaths, and it's not a very pleasant subject, I realise, but it's a subject nevertheless that does need to be talked about. Now the first bit of information comes from an article by a person named Mary Ward, and I don't feel as if I'm stealing her thunder or anything like that, because I feel that probably she just got a press release from the Minister's office or the Department Director General or somebody like that and reworded it to suit her publication's editorial style, and then published it. So the information that she provided was that as of the 16th of October, which was only about 2 weeks ago, that is the 16th of October 2024, there had been 52 motorcyclists killed on New South Wales roads out of a total of 266 deaths. So something like a third of those, that would be correct. And that was a 10-year high and an increase of 33% on the previous year. It also noted that over the last 10 years, 138 men and 4 women had been killed, motorcyclists had been killed on New South Wales roads, and by far the highest proportion of those were men in their 20s. 2/3 of those accidents happened on regional roads. Now, one of the things that's interesting about all that is that motorcycles represent 3.8% of all registrations, all vehicle registrations in New South Wales. So they're a very small proportion of the total number of motor vehicles on the road, but the deaths 52 out of 266. And I'm just rethinking that. I don't think that's a third, but it's a pretty high figure. Now, the other article information that came to my attention the other day, or today rather, and I thought I should comment on, was the incidence of drug driving and how it affects motorcyclists. Now, the information I'm about to give you should not be relied upon as legal advice. I'm not a lawyer and I don't have any knowledge of the law other than what I've read in this article. But the first thing to understand is that in New South Wales, you are not allowed to have any trace at all of cannabis, MDMA, cocaine or methamphetamine in your system when you are stopped for a roadside drug test. So what happens there is the police will pull you over and ask you to take a roadside drug test, and they ask you to scrape this bit of plastic thing across your tongue, and they put the saliva in a machine, and it either tests you as being positive for one of those substances or negative. Each of those drugs is an illicit substance, an illegal substance, and therefore you are not allowed to have any of it in your system at all. There is no, I only had a little bit kind of thing. There is just, if there's any trace of any of those substances present, then you will be required to attend the police station for a more extensive test, and you will undoubtedly get a fine and possibly a licence suspension. Now, one of the things that people might say is, well, I smoked that weed 3 weeks ago when I got pulled over 3 weeks later. The effect of the weed has been well and truly gone. That's not the point. The point is it is in your system. Alcohol is a legal drug, and we say that you can have so many parts per million, that is 0.5 parts per million in your bloodstream, before you can incur fines and penalties for driving under the influence of alcohol. These drugs are all illegal. So if the drug that you are about to ingest did not come to you via a doctor's prescription and you did not get it from a pharmacist, there's every likelihood, if you are pulled up by the police, that you will be and asked to take a roadside drug test, that you will be if you test positive, you'll be fined and undoubtedly have a licence suspension. Bearing in mind that I'm not a lawyer, so the information is just sort of generalised. Now, what I found out is this, that for motorcyclists between 2013 and 2022, the percentage of deaths of motorcyclists involving drug use rose from 7% to 24%. So, rounding that out, being a bit generous with the figure, 25% or 1 in every 4 motorcycle deaths involves a person who is affected by drugs. By comparison, deaths for motorcyclists involving alcohol has remained steady at about 20% for the last several decades. The figures for those drivers of cars involved in who have died in an accident and involving alcohol has remained fairly steady, as has the number for the percentage of motorists in cars involved in accidents and deaths where drugs have been involved. Now, as I said, first of all, the issue is that in New South Wales, you are not allowed to have any trace of any of those substances that I mentioned, that is cannabis, MDMA, cocaine or methamphetamine. There is, to my knowledge, no standard that says you can have a certain amount before your judgment is impaired. Because, as I said, these drugs are illegal, it's the fact that you've used an illegal substance that is the problem, rather than the quantity of that and how long ago you use it. And that's why the story about people who smoke marijuana and then 3 or 4 weeks later get pulled over by the police and test positive, it's not the fact that you're no longer high, it's the fact that you used marijuana, and marijuana is an illegal substance. Now, the thing to think about with, I guess, drugs is, and I'm certainly not going to condone the use of drugs, but if you decide to take recreational drugs like these, ones that you don't get from a doctor, ones that you don't have a prescription for, that don't come from a pharmacy, you can make that decision. I'm certainly not advocating that. In fact, I'd be advocating the exact opposite, but it is your decision and your choice, even though those things are illegal, for you to do that. And if you decide to do it, then that's a decision you have to live with, and you have to wear, and you have to accept the consequences of. If you decide to smoke and you sit at home and you smoke a bong or whatever it is that you do, then you might argue, well, I'm not harming anyone but myself. I'm not going to get into that argument. I'm only going to talk about the fact that once you have used that substance and you get in your car, almost by definition, your judgment and your ability to drive that car or handle that motorcycle for that matter, and since we're talking about motorcyclists, is impaired. The point of taking drugs, I assume, is to have some sort of mind-altering experience. They either make you feel more mellow, or they hype you up, or they do something to affect your mind and your mood. Therefore, almost by definition, because your mind is altered, your ability to make rational decisions and your ability to manage a motor vehicle or manage a motorcycle and do all the things that need to be done while you're riding that motorcycle and make the decisions that need to be made in your own interest and in the safety of other people is impaired. Now, the argument about, well, I smoked the weed 3 weeks ago and I still got pulled over and tested positive, I don't know what the facts are. I don't know what the science is there. I do not know how long those chemicals remain in your bloodstream. But if you have a trace of them and you take a roadside saliva drug test, and you test positive for that, then you will be required to take a further more extensive test at the police station. And if that tests positive, then you will, as I said, be fined and possibly face a licence suspension. So what is the solution here? Well, you can either sit at home and smoke as many cones as you want if that's your choice, and I'm certainly not advocating that, or you can drive your car, but you can't do both. And you certainly can't do that if you are under the influence of MDMA, cocaine or methamphetamine. Now you might again argue, well, I took those things 2 or 3 days ago, and the effect of that has worn off. The legal system doesn't care. It says that that is an illegal substance and you are not to have it in your bloodstream or in your body anywhere at all. But the argument I'm making here is that you are on the road, you have consumed an illegal substance that by its very definition, the very point of its existence is to alter your mood and alter your mind, and therefore to impair your ability to make sensible, rational decisions and to act safely in your own interest. But this is the more important factor. I'm out on the road too. Lots of other people like me who don't take drugs at all, don't drink and drive, are out on the roads, and we're trying to get from wherever we are to wherever we want to be. We want to ride our motorcycles wherever we want to go, and we want to go to where we're going and then get home again safely. We're doing all the things that the law tells us to do, that our training as motorcyclists has told us to do. We're obeying all the traffic signs and traffic lights. We're driving at the speed limit or riding at the speed limit, and we're doing everything that is required of us as a rider or a driver. But somebody else who's decided to consume an illegal substance, such as one of those that I've mentioned, they're not playing by the rules, and they're putting their own life at risk and the lives of anyone else who might be in the car with them at risk. But more importantly, or just as importantly at least, they're putting my life at risk. They're putting the life of other people at risk who are law-abiding citizens who haven't ingested something, who are just going about their business, going for a ride like I might be am at the moment, or trying to get to work in the morning, or get home from work in the afternoon, and they come across somebody who has consumed an illegal substance, and therefore their ability to manage the machine that they're handling, be it a motorcycle or a car, but we're mainly talking about motorcyclists and how they're their own worst enemy when it comes to this increase from 7% to 24% of all deaths involving motorcyclists involve illegal drugs. And so I guess what I'm saying here is, if you are a person who wants to consume illegal substances, they are illegal, and be aware that there are criminal penalties that attach to you doing that. But also be aware that other people are on the roads and you have an obligation to behave in a way that keeps you safe, but also doesn't impinge upon the safety of any other person who is on the road. All right, well, thank you for listening. I'm sorry I didn't get to tell you as much about Goulburn as I had planned in this ride, but hopefully I've made my point here. Thank you for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed the commentary or the scenery, and I will talk to you again when I'm making another video.